Right, so we started 2016 kind of in the middle of an El Nino event. You know, we'd seen very warm temperatures towards the end of 2015, and that continued, and we had, like, I think the largest anomaly on record was in February in 2016, and that persisted because the impacts of El Nino in the global atmosphere last longer than the impacts of El Nino just locally in the Pacific. So what you had is that even as the Pacific was cooling a little bit, the temperatures in the rest of the world stayed very warm. And so July, we estimated, was the warmest month ever in an absolute sense in that period of record since the 19th century, and perhaps much, much longer. And as we've come to the end of this year, that El Nino part of it has kind of faded, but we're also seeing very, very strong temperatures in the Arctic region, and very low, historically low sea ice in both poles, which is unusual. And we don't think that that's directly related to the El Nino event. So it's a kind of independent thing which is going along at the same time. And so that's combining to produce record warm anomalies, pretty much for the entire year. And when you add that up, our estimates, from to the end of November. So we haven't done the calculation for the full annual year yet. That will be announced next week. But until November, we had an anomaly. That 12-month anomaly was about 0.2 degrees C warmer than the previous warm year, which was 2015, which itself was 0.1 a bit warmer than the previous warm year, which had been 2014. So this is a very unusual set of occurrences. I mean, we don't expect that every year is going to be a record year. I mean, like we've never had 3 years in a row like this, and we don't anticipate that 2017 will be that warm, because we're starting off with less of an El Nino signal, or more of a neutral La Nina signal, which has a, as we said, a pretty large, though not exclusive, impact. But it does make it clear that we're on a rising trend, and when we have anomalously warm years on a rising trend, those are going to be record years. And so we have to build that in. Like, if you didn't build in the long-term trend, you wouldn't have expected 2016 to be anything special. It would have been a totally mid-range year for the last 100 years, but it's not. And the reason why it's not, by about a degree, is because of the underlying warming trend. And the impact that you get from an El Nino starting off at the beginning of the year, that's worth about an extra 0.1, 0.2 degrees perhaps. And so we'll do that analysis more carefully over the next week. But what you're looking at is, so why we have a record year, it's 80 to 90% because of the long-term trend, and 10% because of El Nino. I mean, so I think it's totally human to care about round numbers and records. I mean, why do we pay attention to our birthdays? It's and then the big birthdays, right? I think it's just a natural thing. Like we're kind of tuned to that. So 2016, was also the year that we went through 400 ppm for the last time. And that seems like an important thing. But the impacts of 399 and 401 are not really detectably different. And the difference between whether 2016 was the second warmest or the first warmest, that doesn't make any difference to the impacts that we anticipate over time, and it doesn't really make any difference to what we're predicting for the future. So in some sense they aren't important, but in another sense they are, because our birthdays, these records, these milestones are how we track what's going on, because we're not very good at tracking things in a continual sense. Next year, I predict, we won't see another record year. It'll be another warm year. It'll be a continuation of the long-term trends, and it won't be as exciting in the media. But you know, them's the breaks. The weird thing is, like, you know, we don't want it to be another record year, right? You know, we wear two hats, right? As a scientist, we predict something, and we want that prediction to come true because that, you know, shows that we understand the system and that we were able to wrestle some information and make a successful prediction, right? So, I mean, I predicted back in March that that this year would be a record warm year, and wearing my scientist hat, I'm thinking, oh yes, good job. Wearing my citizen hat, I'm going, oh dear, this is not what we want. You know, and I wrote a thing predicting what's going to happen in 2017, and again, if it happens, I'll be going, yes, but no. And so we find ourselves in this odd bind.